The mining vessel Stellar Dawn moved slowly around the edge of the red-brown planet called Rasker 7. It was not a friendly world. Its surface was covered with volcanoes, rivers of molten rock, and deep black scars where earthquakes had torn the crust apart. No one lived there. No one built cities there. The only reason the Villari Union sent anyone near it was for the rare, invaluable minerals buried beneath its unstable ground dot inside the Stellar Dawn. Captain Renner looked over the scanning reports. The numbers were troubling. Seismic activity was increasing faster than predicted. The planet was waking up every few minutes. The ship's sensors picked up new tremors under the surface. The miners were still working in the tunnels far below, but time was running out. Reiner's first officer, Terrell, stepped into the command deck. His crest feathers were damp from the humid air of the ventilation system. The Villari were a thin, bird-like species, built for calm worlds with mild weather. The heat and shaking of Rasker 7 already made them uneasy. Captain, the miners are reporting more cracks in the tunnel walls, Terrell said. They request we prepare for an emergency evacuation. Renner nodded. Signal them to return to the surface. We will pull them up once they reach the lift point. The order was given. But the planet had other plans. A loud warning tone filled the control room. The forward display showed a sudden surge in the planet's gravity field. Something deep inside had shifted, throwing the ship's orbit off balance. The Stellar Dawn shuddered. Renner gripped the arms of his chair as the inertial dampeners worked. To keep them steady, adjusting thrusters, called the helm officer. We are being pulled closer. Reiner's heart sank. If they got too close to the atmosphere, the intense heat and storms would tear the ship apart. Worse, the miners were still underground. Contact the mining teams, Renner ordered. Tell them to reach the surface at once. We cannot hold position much longer. The comms officer tried to send the message, but static filled the channel. The planet's violent magnetic field was interfering with their systems. Then came the sound every spacefarer dreaded, the collision alarm. A shockwave from a massive quake rippled through the atmosphere, sending chunks of rock and ash high into the sky. Several pieces struck the ship's shields, flaring bright against the display. The power readings dipped, shields holding, but damage is possible if this continues, the helm officer reported. Renner made a choice. Send the SOS, all frequencies, all languages. Someone must hear us. Terrell hesitated. The nearest Villari ships are several systems away. No one will reach us in time. Send it anyway. Renner said firmly, if not for us, then for the miners. The SOS was sent. It carried a simple but urgent message: location, danger level, number of lives at risk. The ship's computer repeated it over and over into the void below them. In the tunnels, the miners were already in chaos. The ground buckled under their feet as they tried to carry the mineral crates back to the lift point. Every few seconds, a fresh roar came from deeper in the earth. One by one, the safety lights went out. On the surface, black clouds swirled and lightning danced across the sky. The air shimmered with heat rising from open lava flows. The Stellar Dawn strained to stay in position above the main lift platform, but the gravitational pull was dragging it lower. In the control room, Renner watched the readings drop. We cannot stay much longer, he said quietly. His crew could see the fear in his eyes, though his voice remained steady. The Villari were not warriors. They were builders, traders, explorers. Their ships were not made for extreme danger. They avoided places like Rasker 7 whenever possible. But here they were, trapped in its grip, their lives depending on a rescue they did not believe would come far above them. The SOS signal spread across the dark emptiness of space. It passed stars and frozen worlds. It crossed the quiet silence. Between solar systems, most of the signal would vanish into nothing, but some of it reached listening posts, relays, and long-range receivers. One of those receivers belonged to a species that the Villari often considered reckless: humans. On board the human rescue ship Resolute, Communications Officer Anya was on routine duty when the message came in. She read the location and danger codes, then called for her captain. The humans had their own name for worlds like Rasker 7, Deathworlders. To most species, that meant Stay away. To humans, it meant challenge accepted. The captain of the Resolute, Mira, studied the details of the signal. How close are we? She asked. ANYA checked. We can be there in less than 4 hours at maximum burn. Mira made her decision. Set course. Full speed. The Resolute turned toward Rasker 7, its engines flaring bright against the black. The crew began preparing the heavy landing crafts and heat-resistant suits to them. This was dangerous, yes, but not impossible. Back on the Stellar Dawn, time was running out. The miners were only halfway to the surface. The heat in the tunnels was rising fast, and vents of toxic gas were making the air unsafe. The ship's orbit was dropping meter by meter. Renner stared at the planet's angry surface on the display. He thought of his crew, his miners, and the countless dangers they faced. He had no way of knowing that help was already coming. He could not imagine that humans, of all species, were on their way to dive straight into the chaos. For now, the Villari could only wait, holding to the thin hope that somewhere out there, someone had heard their call, and somewhere far away, the Resolute pushed through the void, closing the distance to a world most would never dare approach. The Stellar Dawn was still trapped in the planet's pull, when a faint signal appeared on the Villari sensors. At first, the readings were unclear, hidden behind the static of Rasker 7's magnetic storms. But then the image sharpened on the main display. A small but fast-moving vessel was entering the system. First Officer Terrell looked at the readings. "It is not a Villari ship," he said with surprise. "The design is unfamiliar, but it is coming directly toward us." Captain Renner leaned forward in his chair. "Identify them." The computer scanned the newcomer's shape and energy signature. When the answer came, the bridge fell silent. "It is human," Terrell said at last. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Villari Union knew of humans, but their contact had been limited. The Villari viewed humans as unpredictable, even strange. They came from a dangerous homeworld filled with storms, predators, and shifting land. Their bodies were built to endure conditions that would injure most species, and yet they thrived. Renner frowned. "What are humans doing here? This is not their territory." As the new vessel drew closer, its transponder code appeared. The ship's name was Resolute. A clear transmission came through the storm's interference. "This is Captain Mira of the human rescue ship Resolute. We received your distress signal. Hold position. We are coming to assist." The voice was calm and firm, as if the captain had done this many times before. Reiner's feathers twitched with disbelief. "They mean to approach the planet," he muttered. Terrell shook his head. "That would be madness. No one can land here during an eruption cycle." But the Resolute did not slow down. Its engines flared brighter, pushing the ship directly toward Rasker 7's dangerous orbit. On the human vessel's bridge, Captain Mira stood beside the helm. Her crew worked quickly, checking the planet's conditions and plotting the safest path through the storms. "Gravity fluctuations are strong," reported Anya, the communications officer, "but nothing our thrusters cannot handle." The pilot, Harris, grinned. "I have flown into worse on my first training run, Mira's. I stayed on the data screens. We cannot waste time. The Villari ship is losing altitude. Prepare landing crafts 1 and 2. Gear the surface teams in full hazard suits. We will extract as many miners as possible before the planet's crust breaks completely." In the cargo bay, human rescue specialists moved with speed and focus. Heat-resistant armor plates were fixed onto the landing crafts. Emergency medical kits and air filtration systems were checked. One of the engineers, Tom, sealed his helmet and tested the oxygen flow. "Planet's hot enough to fry us in minutes if the suits fail," he said to his partner, Lena. Lena tightened a strap on her suit. "That is why they will not fail." The Resolute broke through the outer edge of the magnetic field, its shields flashing as charged particles struck them. On the Stellar Dawn, the Villari crew watched the human vessel cut through the storms with precision. "How are they not slowing down?" one Villari officer asked. Renner had no answer. He had never seen a ship move so confidently towards certain danger. The sight was both alarming and strangely hopeful. A second transmission came in. Stellar Dawn, we will match orbit above your main lift platform. Prepare to transfer rescued miners to our landing crafts. We will handle ground retrieval. Renner activated the channel. Captain Mira. Conditions are worsening faster than expected. The surface is unstable, and the tunnels are collapsing. You cannot risk your people. We can and we will, Mira replied simply. Keep your ship steady. We are almost there. Within minutes, the Resolute was in position. The landing crafts detached from its belly, their thick armor glowing faintly as they entered the upper atmosphere. Inside, the human teams gripped their harnesses as turbulence shook the cabins. Below them, the planet looked like a sea of fire and smoke. Lava rivers cut across the land, and columns of ash rose high into the sky. Lightning flashed. Within the dark clouds, the air shimmered from the heat. Surface winds are strong. Harris's voice came through the comms. Adjusting descent angle, the landing crafts angled sharply, avoiding a plume of molten rock that erupted from a nearby volcano. They dropped toward the lift platform, which was little more than a reinforced pad surrounded by scorched ground. The first craft touched down hard, its landing struts digging into the cracked surface. The second followed close behind. As the hatches opened, the heat rushed in, making the suit temperature alarms beep in warning. Tom stepped out first. The ground under his boots was hot enough to melt softer metals. He scanned the horizon and saw the mining tunnel entrance still standing, though smoke was pouring out. This is Rescue Team 1, he reported. Heading for the tunnel now. The humans moved quickly, their boots kicking up ash as they ran. The Valari miners inside the tunnel entrance saw them approaching and could hardly believe it. The humans looked bulky in their armor, their visors glowing faintly in the dim light, but their movements were sure and steady. Tom reached the miners and activated his external speaker. We are here to get you out. Follow us to the landing crafts. Stay close. The miners hesitated only for a moment before obeying. The ground shook again, sending small rocks tumbling from the cliff above. One miner stumbled, but Tom caught him and kept moving. Meanwhile, on the Stellar Dawn, Renner watched the rescue through the feed sent by the human suits. Every step seemed impossible. The heat waves distorted the view, and the constant tremors made it look as if the whole world might break apart at any second. Captain, Terrell said quietly, they are actually doing it. Renner did not answer. He was too focused on the scene, unwilling to miss a single moment. The humans reached the landing crafts with the first group of miners. The hatches closed, and the crafts lifted off immediately, heading for the Stellar Dawn's docking bay. The Valari ship's crew hurried to receive them, medical teams waiting to treat the exhausted miners. As the first miners stepped onto the Stellar Dawn, their eyes were wide with disbelief. One of them managed to speak through a dry throat. They came for us. They actually came, out in the storm. The second wave of human rescuers was already moving back toward the tunnels for more survivors. The mission was far from over, but one thing was certain. The humans were not afraid of Rasker 7. They had come straight into the heart of danger, and they were not stopping until every last miner was safe. The surface of Rasker 7 was breaking apart piece by piece from the air. The rescue teams could see lines of glowing orange cutting across the black ground, each one widening as molten rock pushed through. Clouds of ash swirled high above, turning the sunlight into a dim red haze. Inside the second landing craft, Tom checked his suit seals once more. The heat readings on his visor were rising fast. This place is like standing inside a furnace, he said to Lena over the private channel. Stay focused, Lena replied. She was already adjusting her pathfinding display to map the shortest route to the miners' last known position. We get them out, we leave. That is the plan. The craft jolted as another tremor rolled through the ground. The pilot steadied the descent, aiming for a flat stretch near the mining tunnels. Landing in 20 seconds, the pilot called out. Tom braced himself as the struts hit the surface with a heavy thud. The hatch opened, letting in a wave of hot, dust-filled air. The heat shields on their suits hummed as they worked to keep the temperature inside safe. Move, Tom ordered. The team stepped out in a line, weapons not in hand but scanners and cutting tools ready. They were not here to fight, they were here to pull life out of a dying world. The tunnel entrance was just ahead, partially buried under fallen rock. Two Velari miners were struggling to clear the debris with bare hands. When they saw the humans, their expressions shifted from fear to shock. "We thought no one would reach us." One miner said in a trembling voice. "You are not alone," Tom answered. "Where are the others?" The miner pointed deeper into the tunnel. "Some are trapped further down." The lift collapsed. "The air is turning bad." Tom activated his comms command. "We have survivors at the entrance, taking them to extraction point 1. Going deeper for the rest." Lena guided the first two miners toward the landing craft while Tom and two other humans entered the tunnel. The ground shook under their boots as they moved, and small stones rained from the ceiling. The tunnel walls glowed faintly from the heat outside, and the air smelled sharp and metallic. A short distance in, they found a collapsed section blocking the way. Tom knelt beside it and switched on his cutting tool. Sparks flew as he sliced through a metal support beam. With a final push, the barrier gave way, and they stepped into the next chamber. 7 miners were huddled together there, their breathing shallow. The air quality alarm in Tom's visor flashed red. "Your air is bad," he said. "Put these on." He handed out portable breather units, securing the straps for those whose hands were shaking too much to do it themselves. One of the miners, an older Velari named Huron, looked at the humans with disbelief. "You walk into this storm like it is nothing," he said weakly. "It is something," Tom replied, "but we are used to it." With the miners gathered, they started back toward the surface. Another quake hit, stronger than before, and a section of the tunnel wall split open. A blast of hot air surged through, knocking one miner off his feet. Tom grabbed him by the arm and pulled him up without slowing. Outside, Lena was helping the pilot prepare for departure when the ground near the landing craft cracked wide open. A stream of molten rock bubbled upward, sending sparks and steam into the air. "We need to leave now," she called into her comms. "Almost there." Tom's voice came back. The rescue team emerged from the tunnel with the last group of miners just as the crack widened. Toward them, Lena and the others pulled the miners into the craft, securing them in the back seats. Tom was the last one inside, jumping clear of the spreading lava by a single step. "Lift off," he ordered. The landing craft rose from the platform, the heat below so intense that the underside panels glowed faintly. As they climbed, a huge column of ash erupted from the main volcano, turning the sky nearly black. From the Resolute, Captain Mira monitored the ascent. "Good work, team. Bring them straight to the stellar dawn. Then get ready for another run." The first rescue groups were already aboard the Velari ship. Medical staff moved quickly to treat burns, heat stress, and breathing issues. The miners kept asking the same question. Why had the humans come at all? Renner had no answer that satisfied them. He himself could not fully understand it. His mind was still fixed on the sight of humans running toward a collapsing tunnel. Without hesitation, back in orbit, the Resolute prepared for the next descent. The gravity fluctuations were growing worse, and the planet's pull was becoming more unpredictable. Harris studied the readings and frowned. "Another few hours, and we will not be able to break free without heavy strain on the engines." "We will not be here that long," Mira said firmly. "We get everyone, then we leave." The next landing. Crafts were loaded with additional gear, more breathers, reinforced stretchers, and portable shields to protect against falling debris. The human teams were sweating inside their suits, even before leaving the ship, but none of them complained. As the crafts launched again, the Velari crew of the Stellar Dawn watched in silence. It was one thing to hear of human toughness in stories. It was another to see them dive again and again into the most dangerous place in the system. Without pause, on the surface, the heat shimmered like liquid over the cracked black rock. The humans moved quickly toward the last known mining zones. Each minute they stayed was another minute the planet tried to throw them off balance. But their steps remained sure. They had entered the gravity well fully, and they would not leave until the job was done. The landing craft touched down with a heavy thud near the second mining site. Dust and heat swirled around it, rattling the hull. Inside, the human rescue team stayed strapped in until the pilot gave the signal. "Surface stable for now," the pilot reported, "but readings say a major quake is coming soon." "You will not have long." Captain Mira's voice came over the comms. "Move fast. Bring everyone you can." The hatch lowered and the heat rolled. Tom stepped out first, scanning the jagged black ground ahead. Steam hissed from cracks, and in the distance, tall columns of smoke twisted into the red sky. Behind him, Lena and two others carried medical packs and portable shields. The entrance to the second tunnel was half collapsed. Several Valari miners were trying to dig it open with basic tools, their thin frames straining against the heavy rock. When they saw the humans, they froze for a moment, startled by the sudden arrival. "We can clear this," Tom said. He moved forward, lifting a slab of broken metal and tossing it aside with a controlled heave. Lena joined him, setting up a portable shield to block falling debris. The human strength and speed made the work go faster than the miners expected. Within minutes, they had cleared a narrow gap. Tom shone his helmet light into the tunnel. The air shimmered with heat, and faint cries for help echoed from deeper inside. "We are going in," Tom said. He turned to one miner. "Stay here and guide anyone who comes out to the landing craft." Inside, the tunnel floor was cracked and uneven. Loose stones shifted under each step. The further they went, the more the air smelled of burning metal. The heat was so strong that even the suit's cooling systems hummed at maximum output. A sudden tremor shook the walls, sending dust raining down. A sharp cracking sound followed, and a large rock broke free from the ceiling. Tom caught it on the edge of his shield and shoved it aside before it could hit Lena. "Thanks," Lena said quickly. "Keep moving," Tom replied. They found the trapped group in a collapsed chamber. The miners were pressed against one wall, trying to stay clear of a deep fissure in the floor. Molten rock glowed faintly far below, and the air shimmered above it. One miner, a younger Valari, was stuck under a fallen beam. Tom knelt and slid his arms under the beam's edge. With a hard pull, he lifted it just enough for Lena to drag the miner free. "Can you walk?" Tom asked. The miner nodded weakly. The humans handed out portable breather units and small water packs. Then they began the slow trip back, keeping the group between them for protection. Halfway out, the quake hit. The tunnel lurched sideways, and the ceiling split into places. Rocks rained down, smashing into the shields. The group stumbled, but the humans kept them moving. "Go, go," Tom urged. They burst into daylight just as a second tremor shook the ground outside. The portable shield at the entrance was still holding, but cracks were spreading across the platform. Lena signaled to the pilot, and the miners were hurried up the ramp into the craft. As they lifted off, the ground below split open, and a fountain of molten rock shot upward. The landing craft's rear sensors flared with heat warnings, but the engines held steady. In orbit, the Stellar Dawn's crew watched the rescue feed. The sight of humans carrying miners through collapsing tunnels left them silent. Renner gripped the side of the console, barely breathing until the craft cleared the atmosphere. When the hatch opened in the Stellar Dawn's docking bay, the rescue miners stepped out into cooler air. Medical teams moved in, checking for injuries. The miners spoke in quick, shaky voices, telling of how the humans had walked straight into the fire without slowing. One miner approached Renner directly. "Captain," he said, "we owe our lives to them." Renner nodded, still unable to fully understand what he had seen. Down on the planet, another landing craft was already making its approach. The Resolute's crews rotated in shifts, but no one hesitated to go back down. Each trip brought more survivors to safety. On the third run, Tom's team found a mining chamber so deep that the air inside was already unbreathable without a full filtration mask. The heat was intense, and the walls glowed faintly red. Some of the miners there were too weak to walk. Tom called for stretchers, and the humans carried the injured out while guiding the rest. The trip back was slow, each step a fight against both the heat and the shaking ground. When they finally reached the surface, the sky was darker than before. A massive ash cloud was spreading overhead, blotting out the light. The planet was moving toward its breaking point. "Command, we need to make the last runs now," Tom reported. "Another hour and the surface will be impossible to cross." "Understood," Mira replied. "We are coordinating with the Stellar Dawn for a final sweep." The last wave of rescues pushed the humans and their equipment to the limit. The lava flows had widened, cutting off direct routes back to the landing zones. More than once, the teams had to reroute through unstable terrain, jumping across cracks with molten rock far below. By the time the final miners were aboard, the planet was roaring beneath them. The Resolute's landing crafts rose through a storm of ash and lightning, their engines glowing hot from the strain on the Stellar Dawn. The Valari watched as the humans came back again, this time with the very last survivors. Not a single miner had been left behind. The docking bay doors closed, sealing out the storm. As the rescued miners were led away for medical checks, Tom removed his helmet and took a deep breath of the cooler air. His suit was scorched in several places, and his gloves were marked from lifting hot debris. Lena dropped into a seat nearby, her face damp with sweat. "That was the worst heat I have ever felt," she said. Tom gave a tired smile. "And we made it." From the command deck, Mira sent a final message to the Stellar Dawn. "Your people are safe. We will escort you out of the gravity well." For the Valari, the rescue was a miracle. For the humans, it was another day doing what they believed was right. And as the two ships began their climb away from Rasker 7, the storm below raged harder than ever, sealing the planet's surface in fire and darkness. The Resolute and the Stellar Dawn floated side by side above the raging planet. Below them, Rasker 7 had entered a full eruption cycle. Lava fountains leapt into the air, some reaching high enough to brush the lower atmosphere. Thick black ash rolled across the sky like an ocean wave, turning everything beneath into a shadowy red gloom. On the Stellar Dawn's bridge, Captain Renner gripped the arm of his chair. "How much longer until we can break orbit?" he asked. Terrell checked the readings. "Gravity fluctuations are worsening. If we wait too long, the pull will become too strong for us to escape without serious damage." A transmission came from the Resolute. Captain Mira's voice was steady. "We will guide you out. Your ship's engines are not built for this kind of strain. Stay close to our vector." Renner hesitated. Trusting another ship in normal space flight was one thing, but trusting them in a violent gravity well was something else. Yet he had seen what the humans could do. "Understood. Lead the way." The Resolute's main engines ignited, sending a bright flare into the darkness. Slowly, the two ships began to climb. The ascent was not smooth. The planet's uneven pull tried to drag them back down at every turn. Inside the Resolute, the bridge crew worked with intense focus. Harris kept the ship angled to avoid the strongest pull zones while Anya monitored the sensors. For incoming debris, large mass rising from the surface, Anya reported. "It will cross our path in 30 seconds. Mira scanned the display. "Adjust course to degrees starboard. Increase speed by 15%. The Resolute shifted smoothly, but the Stellar Dawn struggled to match. Its larger frame and weaker thrusters made every course change harder. Reiner's crew worked the controls with precision, but still the warning alarms flashed. "Hold your position in our wake," Mira instructed. "Our shields will take most of the smaller debris." Moments later, a massive rock fragment shot past. Spinning wildly, it clipped the Resolute's forward shields, sending a ripple of light across the barrier. The ship shuddered, but the shields held. Impact absorbed. Harris confirmed. The climb continued, but the planet refused to let them go easily. A sudden surge in the gravity field pulled both ships down by several meters. Inside the Stellar Dawn, crew members gripped their consoles to keep from being thrown off balance. "Engines at maximum safe output," Terrell called. "Any more, and we risk overheating." "Maintain it," Renner said firmly. "We only need to hold until the gravity weakens." On the Resolute, heat warnings were also flashing. The constant strain was pushing the engines to their limits. Mira kept her voice calm. "Engineering. Status engines holding," came the reply. "But we cannot stay in this gravity well for long." They pressed on, weaving between rising Columns of ash and molten rock. Every few minutes, the view outside flashed with lightning, turning the clouds into a brief, terrible light show. Halfway through the climb, the largest eruption yet tore through the planet's crust. A shockwave of ash and rock raced upward, heading straight for the ships. Brace, Mira ordered. The shockwave hit them like a wall. Both ships shook violently. The Resolute's shields flared bright white under the impact, while the Stellar Dawn's shields groaned but held together. Smaller fragments rattled against the hulls, leaving scorch marks, shields down to 70%. Anya reported, on the Stellar Dawn, a console sparked, and one of the engineers shouted, "Starboard shield generator is overheating. Shut it down for 10 seconds, then restart," Renner ordered. "Do not let it burn out completely." Despite the chaos, the Resolute maintained its course. The crew's movements were quick and sure, as if they had trained for this exact kind of disaster. Harris guided the ship upward in a spiraling climb, avoiding the densest parts of the storm. Finally, after what felt like hours, the readings began to change. The gravitational pull was still strong but weakening. "We are reaching the upper limit of the gravity well," Harris said. "Not yet," Mira replied. "One last push." Both ships poured every ounce of power into their engines. The hulls creaked under the strain. The stars above grew clearer as they broke through the highest cloud layers. Then, with a sudden lurch, they were free. The pull of Rasker 7 fell away, and the ships shot into calmer space. Behind them, the planet raged on, its surface glowing with rivers of fire. On the Stellar Dawn, cheers broke out across the bridge. Renner allowed himself a long breath of relief. "We are clear," he said softly, "on the Resolute." Mira looked over at Harris and Anya. "Well done. Signal the Stellar Dawn that we are out of danger." The transmission was sent, and Reiner's voice came back. "Captain Mira, you have our thanks. Without you, none of us would have survived." Mira's reply was simple. "We do what we can." The two ships slowed to cruising speed, moving together toward a safe orbit far from the unstable planet. The danger had passed, but the memory of the escape would remain. For the Velari, this day would be remembered as the time when humans, the so-called Deathworlders, had flown into chaos to pull strangers from the jaws of destruction. For the humans, it was just another rescue, another mission where they had gone where others could not, and returned with everyone alive far behind them. Rasker 7's final eruptions lit the darkness of space. Like a dying star, a last display of the danger they had conquered together. The rescue of the Velari miners on Rasker 7 quickly became the talk of the galaxy. Images and video feeds from the Resolute and the Stellar Dawn spread across many star systems. Alien species watched the daring mission in amazement. What humans? It was unlike anything most had ever seen. In the bustling halls of the Velari Union's capital, officials gathered around giant holo displays showing scenes from the rescue. The miners being pulled from collapsing tunnels. The human teams moving calmly through rivers of molten rock. The ships struggling against the planet's deadly pull. Counselor Veshin, a respected Velari leader, stared at the images with a mixture of pride and disbelief. The humans, they risked everything to save our people, he said quietly. They faced dangers we would have fled from. Many in the council began to talk about humans differently. Before, humans were known as hardy and strange but mostly left to their own worlds. Now, they were heroes, willing to put their lives on the line for others. News of the rescue reached the Undari species, known for their strict codes and caution. In a conference room on their homeworld, Undari diplomats debated the event. Humans seem reckless, one said, shaking his head, but their courage is undeniable. Another diplomat disagreed. It is not recklessness, it is strength and willpower. They see danger and face it without fear. That is a kind of power. Across the galaxy, starship captains shared stories of the humans they had met before. Most spoke of humans' ability to adapt to almost any environment, their skill in surviving places where others would perish. The rescue on Rasker 7 confirmed that humans did not just survive, they excelled where others could not. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a remote research station, A young alien named Kel watched the videos again and again. Kel was a biologist from the corn species. Known for their gentle nature and long lifespans, he whispered to himself, "Humans live in worlds that fight back, yet they move through the fire like it is home. What must they be like on their own?" Planets. Kel made notes and prepared a report for the Galactic Science Council. He wrote about humans' unique biology and psychology, their ability to handle extreme heat, toxic air, and brutal weather. But more than that, he wrote about their courage and teamwork. "Humans are a puzzle," Kel said softly. "They are small, yet strong, fragile, yet unyielding. Their spirit is different, back on the Resolute." Captain Mira heard the news of the galactic discussions. She smiled quietly. To her, this was not new. Humans had always known they were different. But they did not boast. They simply did what had to be done. Mira gathered her crew. "This mission showed the galaxy what we believe, that no life is too far to save, that danger is not a reason to turn away." Her crew nodded. They were proud but humble. For them, the rescue was not about glory. It was about honor and duty. In the Velari Union, a ceremony was held to honor the humans. Captain Mira and her team were given the highest praise available to non-Velari. The miners they saved stood beside them, tears in their eyes. One miner, Huron, stepped forward. "You came to us when all others fled. You are more than rescuers. You are family." The Velari leaders promised to work more closely with the humans. In the future, trade routes would open, and knowledge would be shared. The rescue had changed the relationship between species, yet not all agreed. Some alien factions whispered that humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable. They worried about what such fearless beings might do if left unchecked. Still, the story of Rasker 7 became a symbol, a reminder that courage and compassion could overcome even the most terrifying dangers. And for many across the stars, it was a call to look at humans in a new way, not just as strange creatures from a harsh world, but as a species worthy of respect and friendship. The rescue on Rasker 7 became more than just a story told across star systems. It became a turning point, the day when humans showed the galaxy a new way of courage, hope, and unity. Back on the Stellar Dawn, Captain Renner stood on the observation deck outside the viewport. The calm stars shone quietly. The storm on Rasker 7 was over, but its mark would last. Renner thought about the humans who had saved his people, fearless, strong, and kind. He turned to First Officer Terrell. "This mission changed everything. We have to learn from them." Terrell nodded. "They did not just survive. They conquered fear itself." Far away, on the Resolute, Captain Mira prepared her ship for the journey home. The crew was tired but proud. They had faced a world that seemed impossible to live on, and they had brought back every single person. Mira looked at the stars and spoke softly. "We are not just explorers or soldiers. We are guardians. Wherever there is danger, wherever lives are at risk, we will answer." The call, news of the rescue, inspired many across the galaxy. Young Velari children watched holograms of the humans' bravery. Other species began to train their crews to be more like the humans, fearless, tough, and united. Scientists studied the data from Rasker 7. They wanted to understand how humans adapted to such harsh conditions. What made them able to walk into fire and come out unharmed? The Galactic Council called for new agreements. Alliances between species grew stronger. The rescue showed that when races worked together, no challenge was too great. Yet humans remained humble. They did not claim to be heroes. They said they only did what was right. Captain Mira visited the Velari capital for a special meeting. Counselor Veshin greeted her with respect. "You have opened our eyes," he said. "Your actions remind us that courage is not about power but heart." Mira smiled. "We all have that heart. We only need to find it." At the end of her visit, Mira spoke before a gathering of many species. "The galaxy is vast and sometimes cruel, but we are stronger together. We are all connected by the will to survive and to protect each other." Her words echoed through the halls and into the hearts of listeners. In the years that followed, Humans and Velari worked closely to explore dangerous worlds. They shared technology, knowledge, and hope. The rescue on Rasker 7 became the foundation for many joint missions for humans. The Deathworlds they called home were no longer a secret. They taught others how to face the harshest conditions with courage and respect for life. Captain Mira's crew became legends, but they remained grounded. "We are not the strongest or the fastest," she said. "We are the ones who never give up." And that was enough. The galaxy had learned something new about humans. That their greatest strength was not their bodies or their weapons, but their spirit, a spirit that could face the worst and still choose to save. As the stars shone on a new era of friendship and respect, the memory of Rasker 7 remained a beacon, a shining example of what it truly meant to be human.